Good afternoon, my name's Kevin Graham and welcome to the Wednesday Bulletin. The Bulletin that makes as much sense as Liz Trust, but would actually do a better job at running the company. I'm joined by James. James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We've got Celtic back this weekend, so couldn't be more excited for having the season back in some regular competitive football.
Aye, regular football on Sunday. As a couple of the commenters have already come in and says they can't believe here he is. Edmund Byrne still can't believe we are not playing first on Saturday, which is true. I'm actually quite pleased that we're actually playing on the Sunday at 4:30 because I am got a short set at the Belladrum Festival on Saturday. So if the game was on Saturday, I wouldn't actually be able to make it. And the fact is I'm travelling back down from Inverness on the Sunday. And so the 4:30 kickoff gives me a wee bit of time to actually make it, to actually go to the game. So I'm probably one of the only Celtic fans which are quite happy that the game's been moved to the Sunday at 4:30. James, you were at the press conference last week with Aaron Moy. How did that go?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surreal experience. Aaron Moy, he was very soft-spoken because you expect, from the Australians we've got, we hear Ange and Harry Kewell on the touchline absolutely bellowing and shouting. They've got really strong voices about them. But Aaron Moy, his voice was very sensitive, very soft-spoken. But the main thing that I took away from it was that he would always sort of round off every question with speaking about his fitness. I'm looking forward to the new season, but I've all got to work on my fitness. So that makes me suggest that he'll be sort of a rotational player until he can get minutes in his legs, which, with the way Celtic's fixture schedule is and how many games we've got to play, I don't know if it's going to be best for Aaron Moy having a lack of fitness. But once he can get back and get going, I think it'll be just fine for us.
I think that as well, and it was interesting to see that he did come on Saturday. I was really surprised at that with the short time that he's had with the squad, that he got a chance to experience Celtic Park on Saturday against Norwich. The chances are he maybe will not feature at the weekend because it's likely that he'll be going through a Postecoglou pre-season at some point to try to bring him up to fitness. I mean, the worry that I've got, James, and we're going to talk about the state of the first team squad after now the pre-season games are all finished, is you look at James McCarthy last year, and Postecoglou was quite open with it, that James McCarthy, the fact that he'd missed pre-season, set him back quite a bit. And I'm worried about the same as Aaron Moy. It's just genuine fitness levels, because you listen to football players all the time going like that. If you miss pre-season, you're always playing catch-up.
It's the same with Giakoumakis. The only reason he was able to save his season was because Kyogo got injured. And we've paid this money for Giakoumakis, so if you're fit or not, you're going to be playing. Because at the start, in around September, October, he was taking a lot of penalties from people we can't forget. Because he missed that penalty. I can't remember if it was against Livingston or not.
It was against Livingston. I remember it very, very well, James.
Because he missed a sitter after it as well.
I remember that very, very well, James, because that was the half-time game where I told everybody that sits round about me at Celtic Park and goes up on the same supporters club as me that big Giakoumakis was an utter coup, and I couldn't believe who had actually signed him. But hey, as a wise person once says, expectations are just disappointments waiting to happen.
Is that you calling him a coup as in a bargain, or a coup as in the animal?
As in the animal. I was rating him at that point. After seeing him for that first 45 minutes, I was rating him at the same sort of as bio and stuff like that. It looked like he was in a completely wrong game. Narcotech here, talking about Aaron Moy, says, genuinely believe when fit he will play in Europe. I'm on that bus. I reckon our midfield, when we play in Europe, will be a fit Aaron Moy, Callum McGregor in 1 hour.
You think Moy's going to be playing at the 6?
Yes.
I think, for me...
If fit.
He didn't really give too much away in the press conference, but from the way he was describing himself and the way he plays, he's a very creative, a very technical player. That sounds like he's going to be playing further forward. for me, I think Cal McGregor, who's Player of the Year in Scotland in that position, I think he's going to be playing in front of the defence. He's going to be progressing to play forward with Hatate and Matt O'Reilly in the midfield.
I think Moy has been brought in to bring his experience into Europe. That's just my thinking. That is really my thinking. But the thing is, James, I still think there's a hole in the squad there in that centre defensive midfield position, and I really need or hope that Aaron Moyes, the centre, is a midfielder that we actually need to like plug the gap that we've actually got there. The reason being, I mean, Postecoglou's been saying that he reckons that he wants to bring in some more signings, but he won't be bringing in signings just for the sake of bringing in signings. He wants to bring in more robust quality signings, which doesn't bode too well for the number of players that we've used in this pre-season, does it?
Yeah, we're not going to. We've always known Andrew's not going to make signs for the sake of it. Every single signing he has made has been smartly identified and tailor-made for a position. So if there's players who aren't going to be playing, Andrew will see you as replaceable. He will replace you, and you'll be out the door. Just like Albion Ayeti's going to be out the door. Just like we've brought in Aaron Moy, because players like Soro, Beaton, and other midfielders are going to be out the door. Well, if you're not going to be able to make it at Celtic, Andrew's going to replace you.
Definitely, and it looks that way. I mean, I was wondering when I read Postecoglou's comments regarding that, and I was going, I wonder if he's looking at maybe dipping into the loan market once the English season starts, and they have to trim their squads to 25 or something like that. I don't know. There always seems to be a point every season where young laddies didn't end up getting in the English Premier League team squads. But I also think if the opportunity arises for a Matt O'Reilly type player who is the future, long-term future at defensive midfield or any other area, he will take that punt on that if there is. And I'm going to use the word value, even though I hate using the word value. If the club believe there's value in taking a punt on, for example, the young guy for PSG, they might look at him just now and go, no, he's no first team ready. But if the deal is right for them, I can see them taking a punt on guys that are in that sort of half and half area there.
Well, from the way Celtic have been looking at defensive midfielders in the market so far, they've had a similar profile. They've been tall and physically strong, but we lost out on Vinicius Sosa, and the other day we lost out on Fausto Vera. He's away to Corinthians. So I think as long as I've got the physical prowess to sort of keep a bit of solidity in that midfield, I think we will get one before the window's done, whether that be a loan move or not.
I've got a funny feeling that what we're looking at now is maybe changed. Even though we're looking at guys to bring better quality into the squad, we're maybe looking at guys that are maybe not just quite ready, and we're going to go, but we've had 4 pre-season games. We've had the majority last season, and there is guys in the squad who, let's no beat about the bush here, who just haven't turned up, who look like they've lost their bus fare home and they're walking home in the rain. They look like they don't want to be at the football club. So I'm going to, after the game on Saturday, I had a wee write down of who in the squad I thought were first team players, who Ange Postecoglou can go and actually trust. And I got 17. But then when I was rereading that list there, I actually changed it to 16. And I put somebody in the to-be-decided list. So I'm going to go through the squad and we'll discuss it after it. And lads, the 400 years who are actually watching at the moment, lads and lassies, hit like, subscribe, and because it really helps the channel, eh? And I want to hear your comments and as well on the players that I think who are currently at Celtic are first team squad players. Joe Hart, I think that goes without saying. Ralston, Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Stephen Wells, Starfelt, Greg Taylor, I did have Bernabe in, but I'm going to put him as to be decided. McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly, Turnbull, Maeda, Abada, Giakoumakis, Kyogo and Jota. To be decided as well. Like, these are guys that have just arrived and they haven't really had a chance yet. And one guy who the judgment's still out on, shall we say. Segrist, well, we don't know. Is he going to be a better backup to Brighton? We don't know. Aaron Moy, don't know. Maritz, Kens, we don't know.
Jens.
Jens, is it Jens? Kens.
Yeah. Maurice Jens.
Morris Jens. Right, I'll need to write that down, James. Thanks for keeping me right on that. And James Forrest. And I'm going to put Bernabe in the to be decided. So if there's to be decided, that would be 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That would be 21. I'm counting as definite squad players and potential squad players. All the rest of them, for me, I think it's time for them to move on, either on loan permanently and just disappear for the football club, because it looks like they're they're no going to actually contribute anything to the season. What do you think of that listing? Anybody that you disagree with in there?
There's a couple of undecided ones that I would have had in with the first team. I would have had Segrist. He's going to be the backup goalkeeper for me. 100%. I think he's better than Scott Bain. I would add him in there. I would add Maurice Jens in with the centre backs, because I feel like you could use two backup centre backs in there. And Maurice Jens, I thought he showed good quality in that Norwich game. He was good with both feet as well, was something I saw. So I think Steve Welsh will still be the player to start alongside Carter Vickers on Saturday, but I wouldn't mind seeing Jens getting a start or even some minutes. Bernabe, I would again. It's just the new signings I would have around the first team, because for me they've been signed for the first team. And I don't think I caught you saying Christopher Julian there. That's fair enough. The fact that we've signed Jens, I think, means Christopher Julian is going to be out the door. And there's links with France, teams in France and teams in Germany. So I think Julian will be out the door.
I think so as well. There's a couple of people are coming in to ask me to repeat the list. The reason that I haven't put the signings in as definite first team players, I've put them in as to be decided and as in the first team squad. So there's 21 all in, but having a look at the squad, I reckon there's 16 guys that I know if I see their name on the team sheet. There's actually 22 because I've just forgot Idaguchi, even though he's ended up injured. I've just somebody in the comments has just pointed that out to me. So there's 22. I reckon there's 22 there. So the list again is Hart, Ralston, Juranovic, Cameron Carter, Vickers, Welsh, Starfelt, Taylor, McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly, Turnbull, Maeda, Abada, Giakoumakis, Kyogo and Jota. To be decided is Idaguchi, Segrist, Moy, Kens, Jens and James Forrest.
Yeah,
James Forrest. So that's my 21 there.
It's a good list. For me, if you look at that list and the starting 11 was to come out and you would see those players in the list in the starting 11, there'd be no panics about you seeing them in the squad. Whereas some of the players are undecided, there is going to be that unknown quantity. But if the players you're putting for your first team list, you know what you're going to get out of them.
Aye.
And there's no sort of reason to be worried or reason for sort of question about the manager's decisions.
No, there isn't. I'm going to ask you a question, and this is one of these questions that get put out here that always gets asked. Do you think our summer business has strengthened the first 11? For me, on paper, it doesn't look like it has, but football's not played on paper. And I think what we're actually hoping for is improvement, because we're in the second year of Postecoglou, and we look at the improvement of certain players already in pre-season. And we know we can't read nothing into pre-season, but there is certain improvements that you're actually seeing in guys, and you're going. I mean, my hope for Europe is basically that this team's never been in. This team's never been in Europe. I know I kind of hanged myself that we weren't going to spend the 50, 60 million pounds. We weren't even going to spend the 25 million pound. So we hope that there's going to be players improve and become Champions League players under the fact that we've spent money on great backroom staff. We've got a decent manager, and the standards behind the scenes have went up a level from the last couple of seasons. No last season, but obviously the previous era. That era between Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou coming in. And that's what we're hoping for. So that's when people say, well, what's your first 11? And you read your first 11, folk will go like that. Aye, that's no different for last year, though. He says that there was areas of improvement that could happen last year. And I'm going, aye. There was areas of improvement last year, but we've had a full pre-season. We're hoping these players progress as footballers and go up another level. That's what we're hoping for, eh?
Yeah, if I would look at it like this when people say that we stood still. Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers were brilliant last season, but the only way we could improve on those two players is if we somehow were able to find better bargains than we paid for those guys, which in that market we're not going to find. So I would look at it like this. If Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers are gone, so Dyson Maeda or James Forrester-Abada is our strongest wingers for that side. Would you say Jota is a better player than Maeda, Abada and James Forrest? I would say he is. So I would see that as an improvement. Mm-hmm. If we want to get Carter-Vickers, it would be Carl Starfelt and Stephen Welsh as our two centre-backs. Would you say Cameron Carter-Vickers is an improvement on Stephen Welsh? I would say is. So therefore, I think these are signings that we've had to take to improve the squad. I think with Bernabei, that'll be an eventual improvement on the squad. I think even with Maurice Jens, I think he'll be a good player to have around the squad. That's good that we've got the option to buy him before we didn't just rush in and pay the money. I think some of these will be eventual successes, and then some of the signings that we've made, they have improved the team because they're all going to make us get better as the season goes on as well.
There will be that, and I mean, I can't pass any judgment on players that I haven't seen. That's a problem. That I mean, nobody can actually pass judgment on players that they haven't seen. We're all just making predictions here, and I'm not willing to commit to see if these guys are actually the 5 that I've got on the list. James Forrest I've put on that list mainly because he's just coming back from injury, and it's going to be interesting how he fits into the Ange Postecoglou squad. But for what I've seen so far this season, Atati looks like he's went up a level. Jota's looks like he's went up a level. We've added in cover at left back as well, which seems to have pushed Greg Taylor on to another level. We're sitting here going, where's Anthony Ralston going to stop? Because he's had a decent pre-season as well. We've seen improvement in the players who were go-to guys last season. But we can't say that the signings that have came in yet we can 100% trust, because we've never seen them, James. And that's no me being negative. That's just me actually saying it as I see it.
Yeah, if you're saying it as you've seen it, you've seen nothing.
Aye.
You've seen nothing of these players yet. But you can judge the sort of minuscule amounts of minutes you've seen. But then again, if you were to write off a player based on just a pre-season, that would be unfair. But then you can't also say that they're going to tear the league apart just based on a pre-season either. So you've got to give these players time. See, with the Celtic coaching as well, we are most likely going to be improving these players because I think we've got a very good coaching team. So we'll see. Probably need to revisit this in January to see whether we've had a good transfer window or not, because a lot of these signings are going to take time.
I know. I remember when we first started doing this live, and Paul will probably kick me off for actually saying this, but we had a bulletin which says, "Is this Celtic's best transfer window ever?" When we had signed Ayeti and Barkas and that, and look how that turned out.
We put the tweet out on our social media. It had all our signings for that summer in the picture. It was Celtic, the official Twitter tweet out, and that comes back to bite us. So,
James, we were all really excited We were all really excited at that. We had spent big money on a Greek international goalkeeper. We had spent money on a Swiss striker. And it
Premier
looked
League
like,
centre back.
Shane Duffy came in. And so it looked good. It looked good. So once bitten, twice shy, mate. That's where I'm going with this.
We've got no reason for doubt under Ange, though. I mean, I say it all the time, we've got no reason to expect that something like that will happen. I think we can be confident enough with Ange.
Aye, definitely, and that's my main hope. My main hope of everything that Postecoglou improves the squad that we've got there, and the players seem to be buying into Postecoglou, and Ange is your biggest asset. As I says, the first podcast that I came back on, Ange Postecoglou wasn't the man that we wanted, but Ange Postecoglou has turned out to be the man that we needed, and that's the best thing we can actually say about it. I sent you a couple of questions because, as everybody knows, this is all scripted and we get told what to say by the powers that be. So I sent you a couple of questions, James, and I want to get people involved in the comments here. So get in with your comments and that. So the first question I sent you is, who has been the biggest success in pre-season?
Well, for me, the biggest success of pre-season, you've just got to look at Twitter and see who everybody's been ranting and raving about on there. I've got a few names written down, but I'm going to go with Rio Hitae. I think you can see he's had the break, which everybody knew he needed, but one of the only sort of minor criticisms I had Ange last season was his reluctance to drop Rio Hitae. I think there was sort of points at the end of the last season where you could see that Hitae needed a rest, but for some reason he just didn't get dropped. But we've seen his journals and stuff. We've seen how much he thinks a rest was needed because he'd played non-stop football. And with that summer break, I think he's going to come back better than ever. So I think he will be a very exciting player for next. He's my success of pre-season. A couple of other honourable mentions, though. I think David Turnbull has looked very impressive because a lot of people have been writing him off, which I don't know if that's just to do with the quality of Matt O'Reilly and there's so much sort of hype around him that David Turnbull's kind of been put in the back burner. But I think David Turnbull is someone else that we should be keeping an eye on, and he will be in and around the first team doing just fine next season. And my other honourable mention was Anthony Ralston. The fact that people are thinking he could be starting ahead of Josip Juranovic, who's just had interest from Atletico Madrid for the first game of the season, says it all about how good Anthony Ralston's pre-season was. And even before the pre-season, he scored his first ever goal for Scotland on his Scotland starting debut as well. So I think there's a lot to look forward to for Ralston as well. We've been talking about him improving. He's only got to go up a couple more levels as well, I think.
Interesting. I'm going to go to your Anthony Ralston one there because he was one that I had written down as well. I think Anthony Ralston has given of another level. Am I back in?
You're back now.
You froze for this. Am I back now? Hold on, I'll open my door. 2 seconds. Right. I'll try and get the... I think Anthony Ralston's gave us a sweet, tantalising taste that there's another level there. And I'm going to say this. There could be a Kieran Tierney level on him. What do you think of that?
I think at this sort of age that Ralston was at, I think Tierney was playing regular Champions League football when he'd already had Premier League interest. I think he maybe even made the move to Arsenal at that point. I think Ralston, because of the sort of stint at the start of his career, he didn't really improve as a player at all. Since he's had those years, those were the years where Kieran Tierney was playing every second week in the Champions League. So I think he's just a bit too far behind in the growth and development that I don't think he could make it to a Kieran Tierney level. I don't want to say it because I'm a big fan of Anthony Ralston, but I don't think he's going to make that sort of level. I
think there's plenty of scope left now. I think Anthony Ralston has shown that he's got plenty of development left. And I don't know, it was just something in his pre-season games that I saw certain elements of Kieran Tierney in him. And I'm like, I didn't think he had that in him. Same as I didn't think that he had last season in him. And I've got a funny feeling that he's going to boss this season. I mean, I think you saw his leadership qualities against Norwich as well. He he's got this sort of Scottish determination, doggedness that Kieran Tierney had that we'll need in the side. People talk about Scott Brown disappearing and we miss that sort of bite. I see it in guys like Ralston and Greg Taylor. I see that sort of bite there, that sort of Scottishness. And there is a reason why Ange Postecoglou gave guys like Taylor and Ralston a contract extensions, James.
I see what you're saying. They seem like there's a few players in the team. There's a couple of the Japanese boys, when they tackle someone, they always rush to sort of help them up, give them a pat in the back, make sure they're right. Whereas guys like Anthony Ralston, they'll just go through them, man, and then they won't even bother to go help them up and check them out. You sometimes want your players to be, and the only word to use is a bit of a bastard. Sometimes you just need those sort of players in your team.
We apologise to anybody for the bad language there, if anybody's actually bored, but we apologise for the bad language. It's usually me that does it, James, so well done.
It's the only word you could use, and sometimes you need those sort of players in your team. You don't want to just be known as nice guys, because when nice guys come up against the bigger and better teams, they get pushed over and brushed aside, especially in Europe. Having those sort of players in your team, I'm not going to repeat the word again, but having those sort of players in your team, it could really pay dividends.
Alex Burrell, thank you, Alex. I agree, Kev, for a change. Thank you very much, Alex. I know me and you have had many a ding-dong there. A lot of love in the comments for David Turnbull as well. This is a big season for David Turnbull. Michael Ross comes in and says Turnbull is a baller. It was kind of overlooked by the fantastic performances of Matt O'Reilly and also Rio Hatate as well. But I think David Turnbull has absolutely done himself the world of good this pre-season as well. And I think he offers us something really, really different in that middle of that park. I mean, people say that we've got options that in that middle we do, but I reckon every one of them's slightly different. And I think David Turnbull's got that Stan Petroff ability to break the line in between the midfield and the strikers that we didn't seem to have for any other midfielders, James.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of David Turnbull. I have been for the last few years. Let's not forget, Ange Postecoglou is a big fan of David Turnbull as well. Turnbull was playing regular football almost every week, pretty much, up until he got injured in the League Cup final. It was to a high level as well. I can't remember. I think it might have been double figures for both goals and assists. But my favourite David Turnbull quality is he's got an eye for a shot as well. But it's not like a Ryan Christie eye for a shot where he takes that many shots from range, it gets frustrating. But he's very good at distance shooting, and I'm a big fan of that. I don't know if I'm such a big David Turnbull fan because he sort of provided that shining light during the worst season in my Celtic supporting career. So he sort of stood out. He was only sort of light from that season. But he's just unlucky that we've got a very strong midfield. But I think he still has a place in that midfield. I don't know whether that means you drop Matt O'Reilly to get there, because those are the two similar players. If David Turnbull's going to be coming into the team, I think it would be Matt O'Reilly that goes out. So it just depends on how everybody plays, really.
It does. It's great, but it's absolutely fantastic to have those options in the middle of the park. And again, he's in my top 16 players. And if I saw any of the combination of the three midfield players that I've got in that top 16, I'm not going to be worried in a drop off in quality. There'll maybe be a drop off in what's certain technical aspects each player gives us, which will slightly change the way that we play, but all of them bring a certain level of quality, which is all we're actually asking for in your first team squad. One player you didn't mention, and I'm going to mention him. I think that one of the successes of this pre-season has been Greg Taylor. He's like a dog with a bone with that first team jersey now, where I was buying Burnaby as well, and it looks like he's no going to lick it up. And I think there's been a noticeable improvement in Greg Taylor's mobility and energy levels and also physicality this pre-season in the couple of games that I've watched him, and he's no getting up that jersey for a fight.
Yeah, for me, Greg Taylor, I think, at a domestic Scottish level, you sort of know what you're going to get. I would be lying if I said his performance levels hadn't risen. the games that I'd sort of had criticisms for David Turnbull were the bigger games, like the matches against Rangers and then the League Cup semi-final he scored against Rangers. Greg Taylor was very good in that game. But the main deciding factor for me to see how far Greg Taylor has come will be in the Champions League games. Because I've always thought he's too small for those games, but it's also too high a level for those games where he's just going to get caught out. So the main sort of indicator as to how far Greg Taylor has come will be those Champions League games. Because if he's just getting torn apart by the high level opposition, then it's just going to show me he's the same sort of player he was before.
Aye.
I don't know if that's too harsh.
No, there was a game, I can't remember what game it was against Europe. I think it was Leverkusen when he had 2 mistakes in a couple of minutes, and I think he definitely gave away a penalty kick, and he completely lost the plot. But this is a development that we need. We are a club that's not going to buy the finished article. We've got to actually develop players to play at that level, and that's something that we haven't done over the last couple of years, and it's something that we're hoping Ange Postecoglou actually can actually do over the next couple of years as well. And these lads are going to make mistakes in Europe. They are going to make mistakes in Europe, but I want to see them competing in Europe. I want to see them not being frightened to take that step into Europe and understand that people have got like concerns defensively. Of course we've got concerns defensively, just the way that we play football. We are going to have concerns. We're going to have concerns like defensively, but I think sometimes you've just got to embrace it. I would rather play the way that we play and take it to teams and try to give the Frankenstein monsters of football clubs in the Champions League a bloody nose than park the bus and hope for the best.
Yeah, for me, with Greg Taylor, I don't know if you should just persist with him just because you want him to do well. Though, are you going to settle for him to make mistakes just because he's maybe showing a bit of bite? Because I've not really seen the bite from him in Europe yet with Greg Taylor. I think we'll see where him and Bernabei are in January, and then we'll sort of know who the top left back is at our club.
What I will say is both of them will get minutes. Both of them are going to get enough minutes for us to actually make a judgment because of the number of games we've got to play between Sunday and the break-off for one of the strangest World Cups that will ever be in our lifetimes, James. So they are going to get minutes, and we are going to be able to make a judgment on these players. And even still, I would actually say with Bernabei, you've got to give a lad for Argentina a season to actually bed in, get used to working under Postecoglou. So you're talking about this point next year, you might actually only see the best of Bernabei, but he is actually going to get time, like to actually prove himself this season. Paddy Laverty comes in and he says, Hoopy the Huddle Hound had a great pre-season. That's nice to know.
I feel pretty sorry for Hoopy the Huddle Hound because whoever was in that costume in that sort of heat, I feel pretty sorry for Hoopy the Huddle Hound.
What happened to the girl Huddle Hound at the Hud? She seemed to have disappeared. I don't know. Answers in the comments if anybody can tell us what happened to Hoopy's girlfriend. Great link-up play with Abada and Jesus is about David Turnbull. His attacking stats are top class. Play him every time against bus parkers. Francisco comes in. The Bull is a great for a goal or two. And I already brought up Ryan. The Tim Turnbull is a monster. Frank Kennedy proves me up. Ralston as good as Kearney, Kev, with 4 wee smiley faces. I can't where you're coming there, Frank, but what I actually says, I've seen the potential to go to that level. And I didn't think he had that in him, but I have seen the potential to go to that level. If he keeps on, I've frozen again, eh?
No, you're still going.
No, I'm frozen on my screen. If he keeps on going to the level that, if he keeps on progressing at the level that he's actually going, the Champions League will be good for Anthony Ralston. We'll move on to the next question that I sent you, James. Surprise of the pre-season.
For me, the surprise of the pre-season, I'd have to go with... I've got a few options written down, but I'm going to go with Bosun Loal. I think the way he's looked so composed and hasn't looked that far out of place alongside those first team players, because for me, when you're going to give these young players a chance, it shouldn't be in a team full of other youngsters. The proper way to give them a chance is to put them in a team with the strongest 11. Then you see how they fit in. So, and I think Bosanla was taken to it like a duck to water. I think he's been good player alongside Julian as well in pre-season, and defence has looked pretty shaky at some points in this pre-season. But I think the fact that Bosanla hasn't looked that much out of place sort of says good things for where he will be in the first team for the future. It's just the only thing that has me worried is for his development would be the signing of Maurice Jens. So I think for me, Bosanla would be fifth choice centre back at the moment. But the fact that he got so much minutes, so it's sure to be a good sign for him for this season.
No, remember we were sitting waiting on Brian to come and join us, James. Well, he's messaged us. How the lads off this week, but watching you boys smash it. Brian, we never received the note for your mate. He said that you weren't coming in, so you'll need to get that sorted out.
Finally, it's not next time.
He finally's turned up. With Wall, I think it's very, very clear that he needs a loan move. I don't think B team football is going to suit him in the Lowland League, even though
I think Jens coming in is only going to encourage that. I don't want it to be a lower Scottish team though.
I mean, he played for the B team last night. Him and Johnny Kenny went back down to the B team last night, and they got beat off Cowden Beef, who Hearts B had smashed 6-0 on the Saturday. So I think Wall and Kenny both need to go out on loan. I really do. But I get what you say. He came in, he didn't look that out of place, but there was definite rough edges that need to get sharpened up, and the loan move will actually do him really, really good. Any other surprises in pre-season for you, James?
I think Lyle was sort of the only one that really got consistent minutes out of the B team players in pre-season. I think on the sort of occasions where they got a start, I thought Rocco Vata and Johnny Kenny both looked pretty impressive. Johnny Kenny could have had a hat trick if Christopher Julian never jumped in and stole the goal from him. But I think if anyone in that B team is going to be getting an opportunity next season, whether it is a loan move to another club to get minutes to come back first team ready or not, I think it will be Bosan Lowell.
Right, definitely. Edmund Byrne comes in again and tells me that Hoopy dumped her as she was caught getting her belly tickled for Broxy Bear. Well, I mean, that should be on Jeremy Kyle, maybe knowing the Bulletin on a Wednesday afternoon, but we'll leave that there. My surprise, and this is, I've been really, really impressed with Dyson Maeda this pre-season. Yes, sometimes he still got the look of a toddler trying to catch a bouncy ball. He still has that, and sometimes he still misses easy chances. But his work rate, his speed, and his instinct, now I see him as a major part of Ange Postecoglou's Celtic, especially in Europe. He's going to be worth his weight in gold against defences who are like better than what we've actually faced domestically. The way that he closed down, the way that he presses, and the fact that he's got that instinct in the box. I was really, especially the game against Legia. The game against Legia, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. The runs that he was making, and the understanding that he was getting from the midfield, because we're actually now playing quicker balls. For me, Dyson Maeda has been a surprise to me that this pre-season. Maybe I just didn't actually rate him, but I had a look at him, and there is clear deficiencies in his game, and I'm not slagging the guy for that. There is clear deficiencies in his game, but what he can actually bring on the other side, like, makes up for it. It really does.
Yeah, I think. Oh, that didn't come as a surprise to me that Dyson Maeda was very good in pre-season. I don't think it was a surprise, because I've always thought that Dyson Maeda was a very good player. The only sort of issue you would have with him is maybe he misses a few chances as well, but Kyogo misses a few chances as well. And for me, he's the second best player in the team behind Callum McGregor. But I think Maeda proved a lot of people wrong in that Norwich game. There's a lot of people who slated him for not being a technical player, doesn't have any technical ability, and then he scores a cracking back heel in that friendly against Norwich. I think Tyson made, as you mentioned, against those sort of better quality defences in Europe that are maybe going to just push that bit further forward. They aren't going to just sit back. Maeda will have the time of his life, and so will Kyogo, and so will Jota as well.
And when I wrote this down, when I was thinking about maybe I've been harsh on Maeda, because of his stats in Japan, the goals and that he scored in Japan, the fact that
a lot of fans were harsh on him. A lot of fans were harsh on his first sort of few seasons. I don't know, not first few seasons, his first few games. Then he scored against Hibs. I think it was the draw away at Easter Road that maybe brought Maeda in for some sort of unneeded criticism, the same way sort of Giakoumakis had it. And the only way to sort of stop that criticism is to prove them wrong. Giakoumakis done that, and Maeda's doing the same. He's still got some doubters, but I can see him prove them all wrong.
Aye, I mean, he's getting a lot of love in the comments. He is getting a lot of love in the comments. Somebody just brought up there we go. The Raga Free, I do love that name. Fair point about Maeda. He's better for his work off the ball than on it. He'll score goals, but his first touch is ropey. It is ropey. And somebody else is coming and says, what are Maeda's deficiencies? It's Chris Mulligan comes in and says, what are Maeda's deficiencies? As I say, he sometimes looks uncomfortable on the ball, and he does miss easy chances. That's been proved. There was a chance against Rangers last season when he absolutely bottled it against Alan McGregor. Against Lega, he could have had a hat-trick before he actually eventually scored possibly his hardest chance. And that is what we're going to get that from. He's going to be. I reckon he's going to frustrate me at times, but I'm going to love him for the other elements that the games that he brung us in. And if we're talking about Europe, for me, he's a definite start in Europe, James.
Yeah, for me, the 100% starts. And I was just going to make the point, if your number one criticism about an attacker is they're finishing and they're still getting 20 goals a season, surely that just shows the quality of the player. That shows how good he is. My front three in Europe, this could be a question for another day, but in Europe I would be having Maeda on the left, Kyogo up front, and then I'd be going Jota on the right. But what would you go with? Would you disagree with me on that?
I wouldn't disagree with you on that. No, I think it depends on the opposition and what we're trying to do. But I would go that would be my front three. That would be my strongest front three, and that's extremely harsh on Giakoumakis. That is extremely harsh on Giakoumakis. But that's the options that we've got up front there, eh? And it's extremely harsh on Abada, because I actually had written down as well that Abada had impressed me in pre-season as well, because he started going past fullbacks. Towards the tail end of last season, he wasn't going past anybody. But the start of this pre-season, he's actually started going past fullbacks again, and he scored a decent goal as well. And I was going, wait a minute, he's actually looks like he's stepping up again. Where at the tail end of last season, I was maybe going, I've got to remember that he's only 20. Sorry, James, there you go.
He seems to get pretty frustrated when he receives the ball to feet, because he doesn't really like taking his man on. He's much better running in behind the defender, receiving the ball in behind and just running onto it. So I think I can see what you're saying about that, but he's starting to change his game up. And for me, I think I much prefer Jota playing out on the left, because he can just cut inside and cross and hit it straight away. Whereas when he's playing on the right and he cuts inside, he's often forced back the way by the defenders, which you're having to put Maeda in, you're having to shoehorn Jota out onto the right. If Celtic, it shows the depth of quality we have in that attack, that you could even change things up and go Jota on the left, Giakoumakis, and then Abad on the right. Then you've still, I don't think you've lost any quality in the forward line there either. It just shows the depth of quality we have in that front three.
As Kaiser HTTC comes in and says clinical is essential in Europe, and again, one of the things I think Maeda could be more clinical, and also as well Jota. I mean, how many times has he cut inside and blown the ball across the bar? That's got to be one part.
Most of that time it happens off the right. It's usually always when he's playing off the right.
Aye, so that's one thing that we're not going to get as many chances as Europe as we get domestically. So we need the guys up front. If they get that chance, they've got to be clinical. And my mind's the goal that just flashed into my head there was Maeda's header against Bodo Glimt. That was a great goal. That was a fantastic goal in a game where nobody really actually played very, very well. Kaiser comes.
We need to take our chances though. Then with the better finishers in the front three and Abad and Giakoumakis, then would those two be really pushing for starts in those European games then when chances are limited?
Again, have we got to the point where we've got 6 choices and we wouldn't be too disappointed with whoever actually plays? Yeah. And think about where we were at this point last season, James. We were lucky if we had one choice up front. Kaiser comes in again and says Abada will tear it up. Alan Robertson, Maeda should be used away from home or in Europe. He's a workhorse. Jota on the left for home games and Abada on the right. Again, I'm not going to argue with that because I think both Maeda and Abada have had very, very good pre-seasons. Ridiculous up comes in. Kyogo, Gigi and Dyson all very good at pressing, very, very impressive. Daniel Brown about Maeda, correct, Kevin, he impacts every game. And Paul McGirt just calls Dyson a machine, which is a good description of the baldy-headed Kamatachi. Kamatachi is a Japanese wind spirit, by the way. Wind spirit. That's what a Kamatachi is. For anybody that wants to look that up or just thinks, I just made that up because I just kind of make things up. What was the next question? Flop of pre-season. Who's completely missed the bus in pre-season?
Well, I just had a player written down who I thought had a poor pre-season, but he's obviously going to turn it around. I had Cameron Carter-Vickers written down, but he's obviously going to turn it around because he is the best defender of the club. But if we're talking about a flop, a player who's sort of written himself off from Celtic, I'd have to go with Saza Urhoghide. I thought he's just hasn't ever shown anything in any of the games he's played for Celtic. Went to say he has a future at the club, and I'm pretty sure he was brought in before Ange became manager as well. So I just see him. Well, if someone can cough up some cash for him, or if they get another loan move, an option to buy, then it's probably best to get Urhoghide out the door.
He played the 2 games at fullback, and I was very light on him because of he's not a fullback, he's a centre half. He's not a fullback, he's a centre half, and he had a decent time in Belgium last season when he was actually playing as centre half. He's not going to get in front of the centre halves that are already at the club.
We've got 5 better options there.
We've got 5 better options in front of him. So why I would maybe not say it was a flop a pre-season, maybe agree with you. I do agree with you. It's time to actually for him to move on and permanently. Actually, it's time for the sake of his career is to move on permanently. But I don't think he was a flop. I think he just sort of proved that there was maybe better options in front of him. if you can what I mean. I mean, for me, guys who were given loads of minutes, and he got 180 minutes right enough, but guys that were given loads of minutes and never done nothing with it. I think top of that list is Albion Ayeti. I mean, appeared against Victoria Wiener and never been seen since. Absolutely.
That Victoria Wiener game, Albion Ayeti was that bad in that game that he actually started trending on Twitter. That's a Celtic pre-season friendly game against a nobody team, and Albion Ayeti was trending on Twitter because of how bad he was. So that says everything you need to know about that performance, and his time's up. It did, yeah.
Aye, I think so. I think if we can get any sort of money for him whatsoever, or we can actually terminate his contract, that's on the cards. The other one who's been spoke about numerous times not on this just bulletin, on every bulletin, I think Christopher Jullien is time at Celtic is done, which is a shame. The big man was immense for us for about 18 months, but then the stain of the 10 in a row season, which wasn't the 10 in a row season, has been difficult for him to get out of. And I kind of had a bad injury and all of that, but his performances before then were starting to slip in that as well. There was always rumours that he was always looking to leave, that he wanted to leave the summer before 10 in a row as well. And I don't think he looks right now. I don't think he looks right. I don't think he's enjoying it, James. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, I'll always say I'm a big Christopher Jullien fan, but I think he just wasn't going about it the right way. He wanted minutes, which he wasn't getting because how settled our sort of centre-back pairing was. And he was going about it the wrong way with these Instagram posts with the emojis as the captions, and then going and crying to French media to get a start for the last game of the season, which Ange basically looked at as a slap in the face. So Jullien didn't get the start he was asking for. So he's went about things the complete wrong way this last sort of season. It's sad because the amount of good moments that he's given us, just even in that one season alone. The Lazio game at home, the Rangers Cup final.
Aye, he gave us some great moments.
And some of the biggest games for that season, he was a man of the match. He was man of the match, Lazio home and away. First derby game, basically his second or third start against Rangers at Ibrox when we won 2-0, the Johnny Hayes game. Christopher Jullien was man of the match in that game. So
he was immense, man.
He was a brilliant player for us. Even Billy Bolingoli was good that day, which is another player that we're just delighted to get out the door.
Aye.
But like Jullien, he'll most likely be gone for about £1 or £2 million, you would think.
Bolingoli was also part of our best transfer window ever. If you believe that Celtic tweet, and actually our bulletin as well, and Bolingoli had actually played well that day at Ibrox when we were depleted and ended up Johnny Hayes' finest moment in a Celtic jersey. Surely, Mikey Johnson as well. I think everybody's going to agree that a loan move, which looks like Belgium, is going to be best for the player. But it still seems that the club are holding out some hope of the potential player coming out, James.
I think Mikey Johnson, he's got to go. I don't think there's really a future there for him. I don't know if you saw it, but he was liking tweets on Twitter about the fans sort of writing off Scottish players and scaring them away, and then becoming international players like Jack Hendry. So he doesn't seem too happy with it, but whether it's things that's out of his control or not, he's just not been good enough at the end of the day. And when you consider the age he's at, and we've got younger players like Abada, I think when you're going to compare Mikey Johnson to a player at Celtic, you shouldn't be comparing him to like someone Abada, because Abada's got 2 years in development on Mikey Johnson. He's got another 2 years to go. If you're comparing him to someone, and it's going to sound like a very harsh comparison, it's Jota, because they're the same sort of age range, the same position, and Jota we just signed Jota for £6 million. Is anybody going to come in and pay £6 million for Mikey Johnson? You'd be lucky for 600 grand for Mikey Johnson. So I think he's got to get a loan out to try and prove himself.
He has got to get a loan out to try and prove himself. I mean, there is a player there. I've spoke to guys who played with him at youth level and says he was the best player in every age group, most talented, most natural ability. Alan Morrison, the dawn of stats on a Celtic State of Mind, will actually tell you why there's certain aspects of his game are the same as Jota. His final decision making is well down where it should be compared to other guys, and that front three. And I think that's the problem. I don't think he's been developed properly at Celtic. I don't think they've maybe gave him a lot of game time. You've got to remember he's only started 16 games in 3 seasons.
So we can't forget though, Mikey Johnson. I wouldn't blame the sort of Celtic coaching team. It was injuries that basically
injuries,
everything for him, because in the season that eventually got curtailed about 3/4 of the way through by COVID, Mikey Johnson was starting consistently at the start of that season. I remember he started in that 2-0 game at Ibrox and he assisted Odsonne Edouard's opener in that game. Mikey Johns was getting consistent minutes, and he looked on track to have a good season before injuries plagued him, which has been the story of his entire time at Celtic. And it's just really unfortunate that all the potential in the world that he had has just been derailed by injuries.
Aye, I don't remember Neil Lennon tried to play him as a centre forward a couple of times as well. Heady
That
days,
was desperate times. So that was
heady days. Lewis Morgan as well as a centre forward. Couple of shouts in the comments, James. We'll have briefly. We will discuss them. Kingston boy, James McCarthy. Again, I think he's had enough opportunity, and he's been rolling around pre-season running like a hamster with one lung for me. And I don't know what's going to happen with James McCarthy. I was talking to a St Johnstone fan at the weekend, and he would love to see James McCarthy at St Johnstone. And I went, well, maybe that would be a move that would be better for James McCarthy, because I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think the Celtic move has suited him whatsoever.
Well, I think James McCarthy, he'll be a bit encouraged now that Ideguchi's injured, because that moves him up in the pecking order. And if you're looking at the pecking order at the sixth role, it was McGregor, Ideguchi, and McCarthy. Mm-hmm. McCarthy is now our backup defensive midfielder, which is a bit of a bad thing. You need some sort of improvement there. But the amount of years we got on that James McCarthy contract, who's going to come in and pay the money for him? And we can't exactly release him either, because I can't imagine his wages are going to be too low either. So it's just, I think, I don't really know what to expect from James McCarthy if he's going to leave. I know there's not going to be too much starting football for him, but as a rotation player, there could maybe be something. But I'm just not too sure what's going to happen with James McCarthy, to be honest with you.
I don't know. Jordan comes in. I'm going to bring this up because we like to give a balanced view here. Legit, I'm a McCarthy truther. The boys like him. Ange doesn't dislike him. He's got some mongrel about him. If he's happy being on the bench, then I would keep him. Again, he's had a couple of games where he's came on and he hasn't done nothing. The team's sort of fallen apart. When the teams came on, we've started to get overrun, and we've put it down to pre-season, put it down to too many changes at that point. McCarthy seemed to have been a starting point for that collapse in a lot of the games as well that he's came on. It could just be, I don't know, I'm fed up trying to find excuses for him. I'm really after, and I don't want to be bad on the fella, because he's a far better football player than what I'll ever be, and he's living the dream. He's a Celtic fan playing for Celtic again. He's got a Leagues winners medal, he's got a League Cup winners medal and all of that. But I'm just having a look at it and I'm going, I just can't see where he fits into an Ange Postecoglou Celtic. That's just it.
He's got a Scottish Premiership and a League Cup winners medal the same way Ryan Bertrand has a Champions League winners medal. He didn't really play too much football to really contribute to those. If you're spending a year trying to find excuses for the guy, then maybe it's time to sort of think, well, maybe there is no excuses for the guy. Maybe it was just a bad deal that we threw a 4-year contract at. I think the only person it was a sort of good deal for was James McCarthy, because he's going to be getting a good paid out of it, and he's at one of his favourite clubs. So, yeah, it's if you're spending that long looking for excuses, you get to find one, and that says it all.
Aye, definitely. Red Scotland comes in. No wonder McCarthy looks exposed. The style of play is gung-ho. Well, what I would say to that is maybe it would be better signing players that are suited to that gung-ho style. And I don't think it's James's fault when he came in. I don't know who sanctioned the signing anyway. Right. This is not a McCarthy witch hunt. It is not a James McCarthy witch hunt. It's just our views based on the 6 pre-season games that we've been lucky enough to watch James in it. Now, let's make wild prediction time. Player, who do you reckon will be Celtic's Player of the Year? Also get involved in the comments with us. We won't screenshot all the comments or anything like that and bring them up at later dates, but Who do you think will be Celtic's Player of the Year? And I'll possibly Scotland's Player of the Year as well.
I made a bold prediction, put my neck on line in the Acsom chat after the Legia Warsaw game. I said Rio Hatate is going to be the Scottish Football Player of the Year. Not just Celtic Player of the Year, I think he's going to be the Scottish Player of the Year. I think he's going to go up a level, and you consider how good he was last year, then God knows how high the standard's going to be for Rio Hatate, and I think he's going to tear this league apart.
Okay, I'm going to go through some of the comments here. Jim Brown says Hatate. Daniel Brown says Abada. Ridiculous says Kyogo. JJ Celtic O'Reilly. Robert Gibson says James McCarthy. Jordan says Aaron Moy. Another one for Rio Hatate there by Kingston boy. A lot coming in for Hatate. Red Scotland. Callum McGregor. Michael Ross, Yakamakis, he comes in and says Andrew Gali, Maeda's got to be top goal scorer. Come on, Ian. This is like me. I says the other day that Ian Brown was the best singer I've ever heard. Ian comes in and says Albion Ayeti is going to be Celtic's Player of the Year. Another one for O'Reilly. I'm going to chuck one out there, right? I mean, I already says on Colin's podcast at the start of the season, I thought Idaguchi would be a massive play for us, and I'm not going to like knock that back. But Maurice Jens has come in unheralded. There's just something that I've got a gut feeling in my stomach that he's going to have a fantastic season for us. He's like a surprise sign, and it was done quickly. We've been linked with him before, and there's too many weird links to Celtic. The Matt O'Reilly link, the fact that he seems to know quite a lot about the club already, has got a kind of Cameron Carter-Vickers like feel about it, because Cameron Carter-Vickers came in right at the last breath of the transfer window last season as well, and went on to have an absolutely fabulous season. And I just get the same sort of vibe. I've got nothing to base this on whatsoever apart from a gut feeling that Jens could be a pivotal part of Celtic this season once he gets up to speed, and he could be a contender for Player of the Year if my gut feeling is right. But as I say, I've got nothing to back that up. I just it's just a feeling that I've got.
He wasn't in your first team players list. We've done about 40 minutes ago, and I guess he's going to be Player of the Year.
It was in to be decided. It was in my to be decided list. And I've decided that he's going to be Player of the Year in the space of 58 minutes. See? That's what you get to do on these things, James. I
don't know if it seems like it's written in the stars for him to succeed. The way he's been speaking about the club and how it's clear he wants a permanent deal, it seems like everything's going to work out. So we'll need to see how things. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts against Aberdeen on Saturday. I don't think Stephen Welsh has done anything to show that he shouldn't be starting. I think he's just been fairly standard in pre-season, but Maurice Jens, it'll show where Ange views him as a Celtic player as well. At that point, sort of the season, where is he viewed at by Ange amongst that starting 11?
Well, we'll soon find out. Michael Ross comes in. He's quite right. What he actually is, Michael speaks the truth. You can't judge Jens yet. Aye, exactly. Where's Paul McQuaid? Paul McQuaid here. Jens looks like a Julian Carbon copy. No aggression. Again, Alan Morrison, a lot more learner than me, actually says that he's very, very like Julian, but he just seems to be a younger, quicker version. And what else? Anybody else here? Johnny Ryan just rightly put out that Jens has to get in the first team. Look, I'm just chucking these wild predictions out here because that's what we do. This is entertainment. This has been your Wednesday Acsom Bulletin. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, getting involved in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and please remember, just don't be bams to each other in real life. See you all later.